Weigh-In is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Please do not pat me. Does he bite?
Yeah. He's actually quite a good-looking horse.
Very, I know. I know, but I mean, that's non-horsey people.
Yeah.
We're here today because you announced your retirement. What led to that decision?
Oh, well, I've been at it a fair while, 43 years. I think I started in 78. And I think it's, time to relinquish. Andrew's keen to have a go, and I think he'll do well.
What's the feedback been like since you announced your retirement? No doubt you've been busy doing things like this, interviews?
Oh, I've done a few, yeah. Part and parcel of it, but no, I've got no regrets at all.
I know you've been asked it a lot, but if you had to label the best horse that you've had over the years, who would it be?
It'd have to be Dundeel, as you well know. You were working for me and riding him. He just had something special about him, electric. With
Dundeel, for you in his career, 6 Group 1 wins, what Group 1 stands out for you as the most satisfying and the most impressive?
When he won the Underwood at Caulfield, I think there was 12 or 13 Group 1 winners in the race, and he raced against Kavanagh's Fastneck Rockville, who hadn't been beaten in 8 starts, and they went toe for toe down the straight, and he got up and beat her. It was a great race.
As a young horse here in the stable, we've got barns full of horses here. Did you identify him very early as being a top liner?
Well, we thought he had some real ability, but you never know how far they go. They often promise and don't deliver.
A number of stallions have come through the stable for you. Outside of Dundeel, are there any others that you can highlight that gave you particular thrills?
Well, your Mongolian Calm performed extremely well here in Australia, and he got colitis just before the Melbourne Cup, which threw a spanner in the works, but he was a terrific stayer, and we were all looking forward to the Melbourne Cup, but that's racing.
The Caulfield Cup in particular, was that win, so significant for you to take out one of the majors on the Australian calendar?
Yeah, it was a big thrill because I'd had a couple of seconds in it, and since had a couple of thirds. A very hard race to win. It's touted as the toughest staying handicap race in Australasia.
It was an immaculate prep, wasn't it? Because everything was lining up to perfection for that day. You must have been so happy with where he was at prior to the race.
Yeah, it was. We were all thought he's spot on for the Melbourne Cup, but that's racing.
You talk of the Melbourne Cup, and there's been a few hard luck stories for you. Tell me about the Phantom being one of those.
Well, in '89 the Phantom ran 4th, and I thought he should have won. 2 leading apprentices fell off at about the 1200, Damien Oliver and Stephen King, and checked them back to the rear, and he got home for 4th, an exceptional run. Next year he ran 2nd, had every show. Kingston Rule beat him, he had his chance, but that was a race record that still stands.
Is the Melbourne Cup a race that you feel the one that got away?
Well, it's got harder and harder, Emily, because the English and Irish and French come out. World-class stayers, they just have them trained to the minute, and it's become such a competitive race now.
Your Derby record, Murray, is just legendary. Is there one of those Derby victories that means the most to you?
They're all, a great buzz, especially at Randwick's a great track, and some of them are on firm tracks, others are on wet tracks, and if you've got a horse that can stay 2-4, you're in with a chance in Australia, because they don't quite have the stayers that we do over here.
Is there an attribute that you look for, or a secret to it? What makes you so good at training 3-year-old classic winners?
Oh, as long as they keep going at the finish. Keep staying, I think. We do breed a very good horse here. We seem to have exceptionally good breeders, and they're always putting their hand up in Australia.
Take me back to the start of that journey and your early life, even getting into training. I understand an early relationship with Harry Green, was it? That's how it all began?
Green Meadows, yeah, I was a Napier boy. I used to go out and work for Mr. Green, and the first horse I ever rode in track work was a horse called Embrace by Contact out of Cuddlesome. Good horse, 1-7 I think, and then along came Lee Faloo Cuddlesome, that was Light Fingers, and Lee Faloo Cuddlesome I think was the dip, but Light Fingers, as you know, was one of the great mares of her era. I've always liked horses, they're a marvellous animal, you know, I think anybody that's associated with them would agree with that, and I was always going to wind up with it.
Yeah. What about your first winner? Do you have a clear memory of the first winner that you trained?
Yeah, it was Vizier, won a non-tote race at Otaki, ridden by Jimmy Walker. Yeah, and Vizier was a good horse. He beat Uncle Remus in the Jackson Stakes as a 3-year-old and got sold to America.
What about a first stakes win? Do you remember that clearly?
He was
too?
it, Vizier.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
So the first horse was a stakes
Second horse I had, yeah.
Second horse you had a stakes winner. That's a pretty good start. That must have given you confidence.
Well, helps. I always remember it.
And then if we go back to that love of Australia, where did that then start to develop from? And what was the first horse that you took the plunge with across the ditch?
Took a horse called Sir Vigilant by Sir Tristram. He'd won the Wellington Derby and the St Leger, when they were both pretty big races in Wellington at that stage, but he was very unsound. I took him twice and he went and missed both times, unfortunately, but you got a taste for it and you got to know the ropes.
Was there anybody else at the time doing that? Is there someone that you were sort of following?
I think there was a few New Zealand trainers used to have a go then. And you'd like to see more New Zealand trainers have a go, because we've got some terrific trainers here and they know how to do it.
The first stakes winner in Australia, that must have been a huge monkey off the back. Who's that?
Yeah, that was our Palliser, won the Caranbush Cup, which is the Tulloch Stakes. He'd won about 4 in a row here from memory, Noel Harris riding him. He went over, and I think Noel will say to this day that it was probably one of his best rides.
Okay.
Last at the bend, the commentator had called the second horse home, and he flashed up and got up on the line, and he said, "I'll never call another horse home again as long as I live." But it was a great N.G. Harris ride.
What was it like heading over there in those early days? Was it like a new frontier, the buzz, the crowd? It
was like a new frontier, dominated by Tommy Smith, Gay's father, and well, the Aussies, they just love it. It's in their DNA. Have a bet and go to the races, and you can't help but getting pulled along with it all.
I've heard a number of people say you're addicted to going over. It's the thing that you look forward to every year. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, I am addicted to it because wherever you go racing, be it Adelaide, Brisbane, Melbourne, it's always good racing.
Murray, for a lot of people who don't know you, I've seen a number of articles. The Footscray Motor Inn appears a lot, and I've obviously had the pleasure of the personal experience of the Footscray Motor Inn. It's where you stay in Melbourne religiously. Since when was the first day you stayed there?
Have to be 20 years ago at least, yeah. Changed hands and, well, I don't think they upgraded it. But no, it was handy to Flemington. You could drive 5 minutes to Flemington, and it was run in later years by a Kiwi, was the office manager, so he always gave us the best. And great place, yeah, a lot of folklore.
I've heard a number of rumours that when MP Baker called, no matter how full they were, no matter how late it was in the carnival, there's always a room. Is that true? Yeah,
that is true. They always found me a room, even if they had to squeeze someone out, which is very obliging.
Have there been people that you've looked up to and you've helped you in your career?
Oh, well, you always admired Bart Cummings because he's got such a fantastic record with staying horses. And when I went over, not that I bet, but I used to keep an eye on his horses and just see if you could pick something up. But you do watch what these guys do, you know, John Hawkes and excellent trainers.
And what about here in New Zealand? Was there someone at the start of your career that you aspired to?
Well, I think you look up to all the good trainers and probably wish you had, when you're starting, wish you had some of the horses they've got.
Yeah.
But as you know, we've continually produced good trainers over the long time.
And I guess with that travel back and forward to Australia, there must have been some really key people over the years who've helped you through that process.
Yeah, well, Danny Power, who's an ex-journalist from Melbourne, he always helped me a lot, did a lot of the form, told me what to be in the race, how to be run, helped me a lot. I'm very grateful over the years.
He just refers to himself as the chauffeur, but it sounds like he's more than that.
Yeah. Brian Nutt, great friend, and of course both my children worked for him doing yearlings in the summer holidays.
And then that sort of brings me to family, and I guess you can't run a business like this without their support. And I know Marianne is a silent partner behind the scenes, but a very important partner. Tell me about her.
Oh yeah, she's been great because she's very good in bookwork and knowing where things are and what it's all about. Kept the finger on the pulse, and I think all trainers need a good wife to help them. It's not an easy game. No.
And having that support behind the scenes as well, celebrating victories together, that's important too, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you get your rewards.
She's from Sweden, so a northern-southern hemisphere matchup. How did you end up meeting Marianne?
No, I met her in Germany, yeah, one night, and she came out here when she was 21. She stood the test of time.
How many years now?
50.
50, goodness me. She deserves a long service award. And your two children, Raiden and Björn, they're obviously very proud supporters of you too. And Björn in particular you got to work with.
Yeah, well, he gave up pharmacy after 10 years when he came back from Europe and decided to work for me, and I had to kick him out after 2 years, so he went to Sydney, and you know, he's done all right for himself.
I know there's a lot of banter between you two about paying for boxes when you go over to Sydney, but it's clear to see how proud you are of him and how
he's done well. He's survived. As you know, Sydney's probably the toughest jurisdiction in Australian racing, and he's there anyway.
And Raiden has her own special achievements too, doesn't she? She's a mum of 3 and also a vet, I understand.
Yeah, she's a vet, yeah. Married to a farmer, and time goes quick, Emily. Her eldest boy's going to Lincoln this year.
You can't have all the success you've had, Murray, without really good staff as well, a core team of people. And I know reading an article that Danny Power wrote about the responsibility you put on staff, sending them across the Tasman and your trust in them. Tell me about some key people over the years.
Well, you do put a lot of responsibility because they're taking the horses over for big races. You're only going over for big races, and you've got to leave it up to them, and they have to make decisions on the horses. And been very lucky, very fortunate. Had a lot of way back we had a couple of top Swedish girls that could travel and ride, and new horses yourself. You'll be looking for a bonus. Alicia goes, I think she's had 12 trips to Australia.
Wow.
And they know the ropes, they know the tracks and where to work them and what have you, which is a big help.
Yeah. And I guess owners is another crucial, this business wouldn't run really without owners, would it? Who's been
well,
important?
we're very, very lucky. We've had a lot of good owners over the years. You know, I won't go into names, but they've stood by you and let you make the decisions, and that's the best thing.
Going back to interests outside of racing, Murray, I know cricket's played a huge part in your life, and you were, before we started this interview, giving me a few facts about you were part of a Central Districts team.
I was just a junior member of the Central Districts team, I think 1966-67, won the Plunket Shield. Different concept then, no 20 over games, no 50 over games, but it was a great thrill to be part of it.
And it took you around the world as well, didn't it?
Yeah, well, I played 2 years pro cricket, league cricket in home Firth, which was in the Huddersfield League. That's where the program where the summer wine was made, and yeah, did all the things you do.
And that passion for travel has stayed with you, hasn't it? I know most years you try and go off pre-COVID on an adventure. Tell me some of the amazing places.
Yeah, well, we've been to some great places, South America twice, and places like Bolivia and fascinating Iceland. So, you know, hopefully if COVID clears, we'll be off again.
What's still left on the hit list of places?
Well, I'd love to go back to Iceland and Greenland. And of course, they're not that far from Sweden. We've spent quite a bit of travel in Norway and Denmark.
And retirement's obviously looming on the 1st of May. Have you any ideas what you're going to do with your time? No 4 o'clock alarm or half 3 alarm?
I've had a lot of good advice, become a bowler and go fishing and all these sort of things.
Anything piquing your interest?
Not really, not at this stage. Obviously I'll still be keen following racing again, but just to have a good sleep and all be tops.
That's an interesting point, isn't it? Because, 4 decades training, that alarm going off 6 days a week at half 3, that's an undertaking. Where's the motivation come from over those years?
Well, I say it's just the horse, it's the business. I think every trainer looks forward to seeing his horses and working away and trying to do the best you can.
And that sort of leads me to Andrew, who will be taking over the business on the 1st of May. 18 years you've spent together. Tell me about him when he first started. What do you remember of him?
Well, he was a part-time cameraman, I think, for the TAB, and then he went full-time, and when Björn went to Australia, he took over as foreman and just grown from there. So he's well schooled to take over the job, and I think he'll do very well.
Murray, when you step away, you've trained 1,800 winners thereabouts and 56 Group 1s. Unbelievable.
Oh, just been there so long, I suppose. Yeah, but it's always a thrill to win any race, be it a maiden or whatever.
Have there been tough times? Because over
Sure
a career,
has.
yeah.
Sure has. Some, you know, we thought about it a couple of times, but you always can see that new horse coming on, so there's a ray of sunshine.
Tell me about that record. It's 5 Derby victories and 2 placings?
2 seconds, yeah.
Is there another Derby in there before you retire on the 1st of May?
I've been having a look round, but we'd like to think one had come out of the woodwork, but that's the great thing about racing, you never know. Things change from day to day, and sometimes you have a horse and he just puts his hand up.
In a number of articles that I read, Murray, you were referred to as a legend. How does that word sit with you?
Oh, it doesn't really. I think I've probably got longevity, which you accumulate wins along the way. So it doesn't really fit with me.
Oh, it does fit with me.